Jake felt the scorching blast of Texas heat hit him as he swung open the diner door, but the real punch to the gut came when his metallic blue, adaptive Ford F-150 wasn't where he'd left it. Right beside the vibrant blue sign marking the handicap parking space. Gone. What in the actual hell? His prosthetic leg, heavy and unfamiliar after an hour of sitting, immediately felt clumsy, and a cold dread coiled in his stomach, quickly replaced by a white-hot surge of rage that felt far worse than any desert mortar blast he'd survived, only for this to happen stateside. Where was his rig? He leaned hard on his forearm crutch, the rubber tip squeaking faintly on the hot asphalt as he spun slowly, searching the crowded lot, his eyes wide and unbelieving. Are you kidding me right now? He didn't just lose a truck. He lost his legs, his freedom, his lifeline, since that specific vehicle was modified to accommodate his customized mobility equipment, a fact clearly displayed by the proper placards and the veteran plates, but it was nowhere to be seen, leaving a gaping, empty space shimmering in the midday sun. Then he saw her, the unmistakable figure of a woman who just exuded entitlement, adjusting her oversized Dior sunglasses as she stood by a sleek, immaculate black Mercedes, talking animatedly into her phone, her voice carrying that sharp, self-important edge that could cut glass. Yes, darling, it's handled, she chirped, flipping her perfect, honey blonde bob. I simply had to have it towed. It was clearly a perfectly good vehicle, and I needed that spot for 5 minutes while I grabbed my oat milk latte, and honestly, the driver looked perfectly capable, not really disabled. You know? Jake's heart hammered against his ribs. He moved towards her, every step a deliberate, painful effort, but fueled by adrenaline. He closed the distance fast, the clicking sound of his prosthetic on the pavement seeming deafening. Excuse me, he ground out, his voice rough and low. Did you just say you had a truck towed from that spot? The woman, this self-appointed queen of the parking lot, this Karen, finally dropped her phone and looked at him, not with surprise, but with immediate icy condescension, her expression wrinkling slightly as if she'd smelled something unpleasant. Well, yes, I did, she sniffed, folding her arms over her expensive linen top. The space was being misused. I called a private towing service, and frankly, I don't appreciate the tone. Why are you still using crutches if you just walked out of a restaurant? You people are all the same, abusing the system. A sigh escaped him, a quiet, guttural sound of pure exhaustion, not from the effort of walking, but from the sheer audacity of this stranger. You people? The air suddenly felt thick and heavy, and the distant rumble of traffic faded as the blood pounded in his ears. My name is Jake, he stated, trying to keep his voice level. And that misused vehicle was my specialized truck, which holds my motorized chair and hand controls. I'm a combat veteran. I lost my leg in Afghanistan. What gives you the right to make that judgment? Her face, however, didn't change. It hardened, a spectacular display of zero empathy. Oh, please, she scoffed, waving a manicured hand dismissively. Everyone uses that veteran excuse. I pay taxes and I know genuine need when I see it. You should have parked further away if you wanted to leave your little truck there all day. Unbelievable. This wasn't just entitlement. This was an active, aggressive display of cruelty, a microaggression that felt like a macro assault. A small crowd had started to gather, their murmurs a low, angry buzz. You owe me an apology and a tow refund, Jake insisted, trying to regain control, but she just laughed, a short, sharp sound that grated on his nerves. I owe you nothing. You should be grateful I didn't have the police called for aggressive panhandling. Panhandling? That was the secondary twist, the final insulting flourish that snapped something tight inside Jake's chest. He pulled out his phone, not to argue, but to document everything, including the personalized plates on her Mercedes, her entitled sneer frozen forever in high resolution. The tow company, alerted by the commotion, realized their massive error when they saw the handicap placards and the personalized plates. They swiftly offered a full refund and rushed Jake's truck back. But the damage was done, the entire humiliating spectacle captured by bystanders and immediately uploaded to social media. The fallout was swift and brutal, hitting Karen, whose name was actually Brenda Mae Sterling, with the force of a legal lightning bolt, amplified by the internet's merciless glare. Jake decided to press charges not for the money, but for the principle, for every single veteran and disabled person who had faced her kind of blatant discrimination, and the ensuing court case was a masterclass in comeuppance. Brenda, represented by a high-priced lawyer, attempted to frame it as a misunderstanding and a simple parking dispute, but Jake's calm, powerful testimony, detailing the specific nature of his injury, the necessity of the vehicle modifications, and the emotional toll of having his independence so carelessly stolen, was impossible to refute, especially with the viral video evidence. Brenda's defense quickly crumbled, culminating in her loud, tearful outburst where she yelled, "This is ridiculous. I'm a busy woman. I shouldn't be here dealing with this parking nonsense," which sealed her fate. The Honorable Judge Reynolds, a stern-faced woman with decades of experience looking past excuses, hammered the gavel down, the sound echoing heavily in the silent courtroom. "Miss Sterling," the judge announced, her voice low and uncompromising, "you committed a severe act of aggression against a disabled veteran, not only violating city and state statutes but displaying a stunning lack of humanity. The court finds you guilty of harassment and illegal towing. You will pay significant financial damages to Mr. Carter and pay substantial fines. However, your most relevant sentence will be a personal one." Brenda looked hopeful for a split second, only for the judge to continue, her eyes boring into the self-pitying woman. "You are hereby sentenced to 500 hours of mandatory community service at the local Veteran Affairs Hospital and Outpatient Facility. Specifically, you will be assigned to mobility services, and your sole duty will be the transportation of mobility-impaired veterans and patients. That means," the judge emphasized, leaning forward slightly, "you will be pushing wheelchairs, carrying crutches, and managing adaptive equipment. You will personally understand the reliance, the dignity, and the sheer effort that goes into every single movement for those you so casually dismissed." Justice had a name, and today it was Judge Reynolds. Months later, Jake was at the VA for a routine checkup, navigating the bright, familiar halls, when he saw her, Brenda Mae Sterling, dressed in a faded blue volunteer vest, her hair pulled back into a sloppy ponytail, pushing an elderly man's wheelchair towards the physical therapy wing. She looked tired, perhaps genuinely humbled, as she struggled slightly with the ramp, sweat beading on her forehead, a far cry from the immaculate figure in the parking lot. She caught his eye, a flicker of recognition and shame crossing her features, and she quickly looked away, dedicating all her attention to the man in her charge. The sweet, sterile smell of the hospital, mixed with the faint, comforting aroma of coffee, seemed to clear the last of the bitter taste from Jake's mouth. The incident had been painful, humiliating, and frustrating, but seeing Brenda forced to confront the reality of other people's struggles, to physically labor for the dignity she tried to strip away, offered a profound sense of closure. As he swung his own modified truck key onto his finger and started the walk to his ride, he realized the ultimate message. True strength isn't about being perfectly capable. It's about making sure everyone, regardless of their challenges, has the right to access their own damn independence, and sometimes the best justice is forcing the entitled to walk a mile, or in this case, push a wheelchair, in someone else's reality.